Hi everyone, this is the first PC that I've ever built. I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I did to make it and talk to you about some of the mistakes I made along the way. The parts I'm using are on the screen, so let's get right into it. So the very first step is to unbox everything and get it all ready to go. In this case, I unboxed the motherboard first, and then after that, we're going to go ahead and start installing components right onto the motherboard. All right, so we are ready to install our CPU. We've got the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. We're really excited about this one. And so first step, we're going to take this little lever. We're going to gently lower that and pick it up. And now we're able to lift up the cover here. And there we go. Here's the bracket socket where we are going to put in our CPU. So let's take this out of the plastic. You'll notice there's a little golden arrow right here in the corner. And if we focus down here, there's also a small arrow right there. And so that's how you know you're putting it in the right orientation. So we're going to go ahead and gently set this there. And then we're going to take the cover and we'll go ahead and put it back down. And the little protective cover came right off because our CPU popped it out, and that is exactly how we want it. Well, we're ready to go ahead and put our RAM into our motherboard. One thing that's important to note, if you only have 2 sticks of RAM like I do, here on the motherboard, it actually indicates where is the best to put your first 2. So you notice A2 and B2 are the best, which would be the second and this fourth slots. So let's go ahead and get our RAM installed into those slots. First thing we're going to want to do is open the tab for this, and that will allow the RAM to fit into it nicely. And then next we want to go ahead and take the RAM. The thing is important to note, there is a notch right in the middle of the RAM. It's important to make sure you get that right over that little tab in the middle so you don't break the RAM by pushing it into the wrong spot. So we've double checked and the RAM lines up perfectly if we put it in this orientation. So all you're going to do is you're going to set it right into that slot, press it on both sides until this tab pops back up. So press and ready, set, go. There we go. See, it came right up. Down. Ready, set. There we go. So now the tabs have closed and locked on both sides. And now we have our CPU and our RAM properly installed. We are ready to go ahead and install our solid state drive. It's one of those M.2 slots. And so we're going to go ahead and use right here, this section. If you've never used these before, some of them come with a screw on this cover, some of them come with a latch. Mine came with a latch. So let's go ahead and lift up that latch and lift out the cover carefully. And there we go. On the back, this is a thermal pad. Let's go ahead and take this plastic right off now so we don't forget later. Great. Now the SSD is ready to go. You'll notice here there's a little notch, and that's exactly where we're going to connect it down here. So we're going to go ahead and put that on that spot. There we go. So now we've slid that in all the way, and we're going to go ahead and pop this down and use the latch, and there we go. It is now secured in place. And now we're ready to go ahead and put our cover back. So we go ahead and insert this slot here on the motherboard. All we have to do is get this latch to connect properly, and our SSD is properly installed. The next step is we are going to install the mounting bracket for our CPU cooler. The first step we need to do actually is we need to remove this bracket and this bracket using just a Phillips number 2 screwdriver. So I went ahead and removed that bracket. Next step, on each of these little corners, you're supposed to add the spacers, which are included with the cooler in the mounting hardware. So we're going to put a spacer on each of them. And then these brackets you install with the L or the R up for left or right side. And it comes with screws provided in the same bag as the spacers. So we're going to go ahead and set this bracket down, and we're going to tighten the screws, and then we're going to do the next one. Just one screw at a time. It's all ready to go. All right, so our next step is we need to remove the panels on our case to prep it for installing the motherboard. So it has a little tab on the back of the glass panel right here. All you need to do is pull on it gently, and you'll pop out a little socket here. There's another one further down here. Pop it out, and then you can gently lift up that tempered glass panel, and we can set it aside. We will go ahead and we'll just push gently on the glass, and we pick it up, and we can set that aside. Once you undo these little screws by hand, then you can pop this out. It just comes right out. There we go. Now that's out, and we are ready to remove the hardware here and finish prepping our case for the motherboard and the other components that we're going to add. Now that we've removed the hardware, in this bag there's a couple of specific screws we're going to need for the next part to get the motherboard installed. Let's go ahead. I'm going to leave it in a bowl to help
have a good place to hold all these screws.
And this little screw is the specific one that we need. It's called a standoff, and it's going to be used to help us install the motherboard properly.
There's these little holes placed around, and the standoffs go right underneath the holes where the screws go, and it connects the case and the motherboard together. So in this case, we had to add a standoff under this hole and under this hole for this micro ATX board. So make sure you locate those standoffs and get them attached properly. And we've gone ahead and set the motherboard in the correct place so that the back lines up. And you will know it's in place if this looks right, if everything's lined up in the perfect rectangle. And now we're going to go ahead and use a Phillips number 0 screwdriver to install these little tiny screws which were included with the case. These are the motherboard screws that we're going to use to attach in these little holes around here, and it'll put it right into our case. Right here, we're going to observe my wife attaching just one screw. It's pretty simple, but it just goes right through. Don't tighten it too tight, you crack the motherboard, but definitely tight enough it's not loose. So go ahead and do that on all the holes that you have on your motherboard.
Next, we're going to take these cables and connect them to the motherboard to get our case powered on.
All right, so out of the cables in the back, this one right here, as you can see, is the USB 3.0 cable, and we need to now attach it to the motherboard. And we found that here is the connector for the motherboard. It needs to get plugged in this direction. Right into this spot, you can see there's a little notch on here and a little notch there as well. So we're going to line those up as exactly as we can and push it straight in until it connects. There we go. All right, so I've got it lined up on the pins, and now we're just going to apply some pressure straight in until it connects. And there we go. It snapped right in place. I can tell it's good. Now we can pull the cable back out. All right, now this is our USB-C connector, and we're going to go ahead and put that in right here into this space on the motherboard. And it can only go in one way, so you'll notice there's a smaller gap on one side than the other side. So you can use that to determine which way it's supposed to go in, and you just plug it right in. All right, next we're going to go ahead and connect the audio jack. It's the one with all the little colors here, and you'll notice the pin pattern. And on the motherboard, we can find it on the bottom left corner. So let's go ahead and attach it. All right, so we've gone ahead and lined up the pins, and we're just going to go ahead and plug that in until it stops. Now we have the F panel, and this is the one that controls the power and reset buttons of the case to the motherboard. So it's really important that we get this connected correctly. Again, note the pattern of the pins. It's just got the one missing in the corner. In our motherboard that we're using, it's found right here. It says F panel, so that's where we're going to want to plug this in on this bottom right side. All right, and it lines up right here with these pins right there. We're just going to go ahead and press it in, and voila, now it's connected. All right, now this case comes with all three of these cooling fans daisy chained together in their cables, which means that they're all connected, so you don't have to plug them in individually. But this little one here, this is for the ARGB for the fans, and then this other connector is the power to the fans. So we need to get those connected. And this motherboard, it's down here on the bottom. You see system fan right here, and then over here you see ARGB, and you can use either one of those. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just line up those pins and plug it straight in. We're going to do the system fan. You can see there's a tab on the bottom that would slide into here. So we're going to go ahead and line it up with those three prongs. That way the tab slides right in place. And we're good to go. So now our fans are all connected.
Now we're ready to get our power supply unit installed into our case so we can start plugging in the motherboard to the power supply.
There are actually 9 different modular cables.
You will need to determine which of these you need to plug into your motherboard and your other components before you can proceed.
There's a little manual that comes with it, and in this case we have the 1000, and it tells you how many of each there are and what type of connection. So this will help you get them all plugged in properly to the back. All right, in the case of our build, we needed only 3 of the cables. We needed these 2, which are together as one for the motherboard. We need this one for the CPU, and we need this one over here for the high voltage for the graphics card. All right, so we want to actually go ahead and put the fan side down so that air can flow through this radiator and it can stay cool. So we're going to go ahead and slide that in this way. And now we're ready to go ahead and put our screws in. You'll notice there's 4 spots for that. So we're going to go ahead and get that connected right now. Great, now we've got all 4 screws in and we are ready to go. And the first one that we're going to go ahead and plug in right here is the motherboard connectors, and here's the connector for it. It's the one that has 24 pins on it. So make sure to go ahead and get this connected. In this case, we're going to turn it around like this, and you line it up and press it in. and it should click. Next, we're going to connect our CPU, which is all the way back in this corner, and we have the cable marked CPU. So let's go ahead and get that plugged in. There we go, we got it in. There's the little snap that you'll hear every time these things click in properly. So that's all ready to go. Now we're ready to take this thermal paste. We're going to remove the cap, and we're going to squeeze that to apply an X-shaped pattern of thermal paste right on the CPU itself.
Now it's time to attach the CPU cooler directly onto the CPU. This is not very hard, but you just need to make sure to line up the screws correctly and get it attached properly.
Now that that has been attached, we are going to peel off this plastic layer from the cooler. And there's a cable that is meant for the RGB components. We're going to go ahead and attach it down here. Make sure to line up the pins in the correct order on the spot. Great. Now it's time to connect the power for the cooler. There are two cables which came with this one. I'm going to use the one that has the all-in-one that connects to the CPU power. Now this spot here is where we're going to connect this CPU cooler fan. So I'm going to go ahead and get that plugged in. Great, now that is plugged in. In the other end of the cable, we're going to go ahead and put into the CPU fan plug, which is located right up here. All right, finally it's time to go and attach this fan. It actually will attach magnetically with those two spots there. And the connectors you can see down here for the fan and the ARGB. So we're just going to go ahead and place it right here, and it will magnetically pop right on. All right, now it's time to connect our CPU cooler. First thing we're going to do is remove this, and we need to take the fan and radiator section, and these 8 little screw spots, we need to get it connected up here.
And we can use these washers and screws that were included with the cooler fans to get them attached. I find it most helpful to start with one corner and then do the opposite corner, and then you're able to adjust it back and forth. I like to stick it all the way down to the left to have it at the end of the case, and then you can continue to get all the rest of the screws put in and tightened until all 8 screws are in.
All right, for our next step, we are going to install our graphics card. And so it's a really good idea. You need to hold it up here to where it's going to be at. And you can see here on the left side, there's the slots where the ports are going to be visible. And we need to be able to have these visible on the back. And it's currently covered. So what we need to do is just check really quick by holding it up there. We know that we need the top 2 slots removed on this side. So let's go ahead and get this figured out. All right, now here on the back side, I can remove this panel with a screwdriver, and we just loosen that a little bit. Then we can take it off with our hand at this point. And now we have access to the side panel where we can now use our same screwdriver. And this little screw right here can come unattached. And the first panel just fell right out, and that's perfect. We don't want it in there. As for the second panel, now we want to go ahead and pop it out. You'll notice that it's attached by these little metal clips, and that's all right. We're just going to want to go ahead and get that popped out. Great, so with just a little bit of bending, we were able to get that popped off. Perfect, and now that we've done that, we're going to take our graphics card. There's a little protective cover on the slot, so we're going to take the protection off. So we're ready to go ahead and pop it into the slot where it goes. Great, so now we have it lined up very well, so we're going to carefully just go ahead and slide that in until we hear the click that it is locked into place. Perfect, so I heard that click into place, and I can verify the clip in the back. It's hard to show, but it's definitely locked into where it's supposed to be. Now, this little screw from earlier, we're going to go ahead and set it in here to make sure it holds it up in the right place. Great, now that we have that screw in place, it's going to hold up the card very much better. And there's one more step. We actually want to add the mounting support that there is for this end, because it is a very heavy card and we want to make sure it's nice and supported. All right, and so first we want to attach this piece just like this right onto here. As you can see, I've got this attached. Now we're going to go ahead and assemble the foot. We're going to check the height. It looks like this one is plenty. We don't need the taller one. So we're going to go ahead and slide the frame of this into the foot. We're going to just pop it together, and now we can put it here. There's a screw that you can hand tighten at first, one of these, and you go ahead and you put it into the hole right there. Now, with that started, we can give it a little bit of extra room by lifting it up a little bit. And now we can tighten that screw. It's now got support on this end as well as on the other end. So our graphics card is now installed very well. We can accommodate this cooling cords this way. All right, now that we got that installed properly, now we have this 12-volt cable. This is the high power cable that came with the PSU. We want to use this one to connect right here on our graphics card. Your graphics card should come with an adapter like this for the high voltage. If you have an older power supply or one that doesn't have the high power one that comes with it, you can attach 3 of the regular PCIe cables into it, and that would power it. Fortunately, we have a really good PSU, so that wasn't necessary. You want to be careful and just make sure you're not bending or forcing anything. But you want to push it in all the way until you hear a click. There we go. I heard the click, and I can tell it is fully attached. So now our graphics card is ready. We're going to want to go ahead and take some of these Velcro connectors that there are, and we're going to attach those in the case. There are a few spots along the back that are designated for them. You might notice there's a loop section right here. We just got to slide this in, and then we can go ahead and grab some of these cables and get them all the ones that are up top. We can wrap them all up together in here. We can go ahead and do a little bit of cable management. I'm going to attach these cords into the Velcro straps a little bit better to make it look a lot nicer. Alright, as you can see, we went ahead and we've used Velcro up at the top, the middle, and at the bottom to go ahead and organize those cables. Let's go ahead and take a look at the front side and see how it looks. Alright, and as you can see, we've got the cooler tubes, but then we don't have a lot of cables going on. This for the motherboard is back there. Over here, the graphics card goes in and sinks into the bottom pretty quickly, and these other few RGB cords are down there. But all in all, it looks relatively clean. So let's go ahead and get the panels installed, and let's go plug this in and make sure it works. All right, so we went ahead and slid this back panel back on one more time and tightened those screws. It was pretty easy to put right back on. All right, now we're going to reinstall the front glass panel. We just had to take these 2 tabs at the bottom and set them into the holes where they go. And then it goes up and it pops right in, just like that. Now we can reinstall the other panel. And there we go. Our case is back on. We haven't taken off the protective film yet. Let's make sure it's all working and everything's looking good before we do that. But for all intents and purposes, our PC is ready to go test out. All right, so we're going to start by putting our adapter into the power supply. I already added a DisplayPort cable from the GPU all the way into the monitor. I'm also going to go ahead and connect up my Ethernet port right away. We'll also go ahead and plug in our mouse and keyboard USBs right next to the Ethernet right there. Now let's go ahead and plug in our power supply to our surge protector. We can turn on the power. Now ready to hit the power button. All right, it's doing something. All right, so our computer is on, fans are blowing, and the RAM is lit up. Wow, now the other fans have lit up as well, and it is looking incredible. Great, so we just had a little hiccup. We had to drain the power by holding down the power button, but then upon turning it back on again, we now see that it's working. We're in the BIOS mode, and it's giving us some options. So congratulations, we made it so far. If you've been doing your own build, I hope that you've made it to this point. But this is really exciting. All right, we are now loaded into the BIOS, and we're ready to go ahead and restart the computer. And this time we're going to have the Windows installation key in the USB port, so we can go ahead and install Windows. All right, we are ready to go ahead and take our Windows installation USB. We're going to pull it out here, and we're going to go ahead and plug that in to be ready to install Windows into our PC. I'm going to plug it in one of these USB 3.0 ports up on the top, just like that. Now let's go ahead and restart the PC and get our Windows installing. All right, now that we got it plugged in, it's recognizing Windows, so we're going to go ahead and get the Windows installed. There we go. And just like that, just plugging it into the computer, it already knows how to start installing it. All right, now Windows got completely installed and we're ready to set it up. So I definitely recommend this USB. It makes it really quick and easy. That only took about 10 minutes to install.
All right, congratulations. You have now completed your build, and now you're just ready to enjoy everything all this hard work that you've done. So congratulations. And once again, I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe.